Hey guys, welcome to TV's Kitchens. My name is TV, and in today's video I'm going to show you guys how to install IKEA suspension rails the proper way. So the first thing you want to do is do your layout according to your IKEA kitchen plan. Why? Because that helps you position the rails, that helps you position the cabinets after you hang them, and also before everything you have to do the layout just to make sure all the measurements are accurate and the kitchen fits. So in my case I already did it just to make sure that the kitchen we're installing today is going to fit. The next thing you want to do is check the level of your floor, and this is very important because you can't find this in the IKEA instructions, and that's where a lot of people mess up their installation, because if you don't do this you'll just mess up the whole thing. So for that I would recommend to invest in one of these chalk line lasers, self-leveling lasers, whatever you want to call it, because this helps a lot during the installation. So the way you want to do this is you place your laser level on the floor or a box. I like it higher, so I put it on the laser box. And then you go along where all your cabinets are going to be, and then you just check where your highest point is. So this is very important because if you don't do this and you install it like where your lowest point is or whatever, then when you have an appliance, which in our case we're going to have a dishwasher here, when you install the countertop it might be like too low, and then we try to put in the dishwasher, it's not going to fit, or it's going to be too high and then you're going to end up with a gap between the dishwasher and the countertop. And also when you install the toe kick requires 4.5 inches underneath the cabinets, and let's say you don't do it properly, you measure it somewhere where it's like really high and here it's really low, then here it's going to fit, but there you're just going to struggle inserting the toe kick. So after you have this, like the highest point, so from the highest point you have to measure, which I already did, you have to measure 32 3/16 and you mark it. So that's going to be the bottom of the rail. So that's very important to keep, 32 3/16. So if you put it at this height, the top of the cabinet is roughly going to be at 34.5 inches from the highest point of the floor. And after you get the countertop, you're going to have like 1.5 inches. So that comes up to altogether 36 inches, which is counter height. So that was for the base rail. So for the upper rails, this depends on a lot of things. But in our case, we have a pantry. So with pantries, you can't really play around because you're going to have base cabinets and a pantry on the right side. So you want to make sure that the bottom of those cabinets align properly to install the toe kick. So in this case, in our case, we have a 90-inch pantry. So the 90-inch pantry has to be 92 3/16 from the highest point of the floor. So in this case, I already have the highest point of the floor, which is at like here, the bottom of the rail is going to be 32 3/16. So from this point, I'm just going to measure 60-inch high. So all you have to do is get your tape measure and basically measure 60-inch higher than that point. That way you have the bottom of the rail of the upper cabinets. So this changes if you have an 80-inch pantry. For 80-inch pantry, you obviously have to do it 10 inches less, so that's 82 3/16. So this was the case with pantries. And if you don't have a pantry, you can really play around with the upper rails because you can put it wherever you want as long as you have enough space to the ceiling. So with the IKEA cabinets, the trick is from the top of the cabinet to the top of the ceiling or bulkhead, you need at least 5/8 of an inch in order to hang the cabinets. Because if you don't have that, you can't hang it. You don't have enough space to tilt it and hang it on the rails with the brackets. And also in a lot of cases, you have deco strips, deco moldings, you call it whatever you want, and those vary in sizes. So they have 3/4 of a thickness, they have 1 1/8, some of them are 2 1/4 of an inch. So you want to make sure that you have enough space to fit those above the cabinet. So you want to put that rail at least the thickness of that material in order to fit that in between the bulkhead or ceiling and the cabinet. So the next step is to cut your rails. So So in the IKEA instructions, it says that you have to cut it to the length of the cabinet. But actually, it's a really good trick to cut them 1 inch shorter in your actual cabinets, because if you cut it 1 inch shorter, that way when you hang the cabinet, you have a little bit of play without exposing the rail. And a lot of people mess this up. What they do is they just put a full length rail and just put it on the wall where the dishwasher is, where the range is. You don't want to do that. You want to hide your rails. So in our case, we have a 30-inch cabinet and a 24-inch cabinet, which equals to 54 inches. So we cut the rail down to 53. So after we install it, we're still going to have 1/2 inches on both sides. And if you want to slide it, we still have enough space without exposing the rail. And especially like where the pantry is going to be, if it's exposed, it's going to be in the way of the pantry panel. So after you make the list of the rails that you have to cut, all you have to do is get your rails, get it prepared, take out all the washers from it. This is really important to keep. And after that, you just measure whatever you have to do. And let's cut a 23-inch rail. And what we do is we usually mark it where it goes. So let's say sink. We mark it as sink base or upper, and we write the size of it, so that way we don't get confused when we have like 10 rails. We just look at it and we pop it on the wall. So for this, you would need a grinder, or you can do it with a jigsaw with a metal blade, but I prefer with a grinder. You always have to make sure you wear safety glasses because you don't want to mess up your eyes. So the next step is to install the rail onto the wall, and for this, again, I'm going to use the laser, which helps a lot. That way you don't have to hold your regular level on it and mark it with your pencil, because that way it's going to be a bit inaccurate and it's going to give you a hard time. So again, it's really good to invest in one of these. So you put the laser on your mark where you marked it, where the bottom of the rail is going to go. So for longer rails, it's better to do it with someone, that way you don't struggle to hold it up. So in this case, my brother is going to help me. His name is David. So you want to make sure that you don't pass the line on your layout that you marked. And you approximately set it in with 1/2 inch. And then you put the rail to the laser to make it even. This way it's going to be 100% accurately leveled. And then you mark the holes. So to where to mark the holes, this is very important, because with the IKEA instructions it says you have to put it to every 12 inch, but it doesn't say that you're not going to have frame on every 12 inch. So what we use is drywall anchors, and some people don't like it, but we've been using this for 5 years now, and they hold up to like 75 pounds each. So with the markings, what we do is, it depends on the rail itself too, and we usually put, like for example on this rail, we're gonna put like 6 of those anchors in, so you add up 75 times 6. And that way, we just drill those in, which you're gonna see right now. Or you can find all your framings if you don't feel safe with it. Sometimes we do cast some of it, but it's a lot faster to do it with the anchors. That way we don't have to go through and finding the frames, right? You wanna make sure you don't go too far in. You leave enough space for the rail and the washer. So after all the screws are in, you can actually hang up your rail onto the screws. And then you're trying to put it back on the same level where you actually put it. And you can actually see your mark, or if you don't see it, that's okay. So after you got that, you have to install these washers on it. So you can actually find how to install the washer onto the screw in the instructions of the rail. But you can't really tell where to exactly put it because you can't see it really. So you have to put it this way. And what's important is that this is how the instruction shows, but you can't really see that it's actually pushing it up to this part of the rail. So you can put it like this, or you can put it like this. What's important is that it's touching here. It has like a little notch where the washer actually slips in, and this way it's not gonna let it fall down whenever you hang on a cabinet. So you have to do these steps with all of the screws. And what's important to note is that in some cases, walls are not straight. In our case, we were lucky, this is a brand new house, brand new walls. But in lots of homes, the walls are not straight, and when you try to install the rail, on some parts you have gaps. So what's important is to use shims, not to force the rail to bend, because you're gonna have a gap between those cabinets. So this is really important. When you have a gap between the wall and the rail, make sure you use shims and you install it that way. So for the upper rails, you pretty much have to do the same steps as the bottom rails. So this is the proper way of installing your IKEA suspension rail. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments section below. And if you want to see more IKEA related content, you better hit that subscribe button.